just happened?
What just happened?
What just happened?
What just happened?
What the f*** happened?
What just happened? I'm Dan. That's Julia. And today we're here to talk Only Murders in the Building, Season 3, Episode 6, called Ghostlight. I'm learning a lot about theater, Jules. There's a lot of lore to it that I never knew. And
yeah, there is.
I think we're back. This episode was good.
I liked it. I did. I liked it a lot. I wish we had seen a little bit more from Charles, but considering everything that happened with him last week, he deserved a break.
A little break. The way he sees it, he almost died 3 times this episode. So
he's not wrong.
Yeah, it was the vibe was back. It felt like Only Murders to me, and I really enjoyed it. I will say, to open this up, if you've been watching our past videos, thank you so much. A couple things to announce real quick. We have a theory video coming up on Thursday, so get your comments in quick and we'll read some on that video. Of course, we're going to read some from the past one too. Can't wait. There's tons of stuff to theorize about at this point in the show. Get them in and it's going to be fun. And also, I think I have to pull back just a tad on Taubert, just a tad, because I was reading these comments, and a lot of people believe he's just a red herring. Like, yeah, he's gives off that weird vibe, and people don't really trust him. But I think the consensus in the comments is that he's a red herring and he's not the murderer. Now, I still think he is.
No,
a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. I think that there were some things in this episode that kind of did try to trick us into thinking it was him, and then they're like, just kidding. They're like, is it him? Is it not? We'll never tell.
There was a couple things this episode like that, and then there was also another Clue reference. I'll talk about it when we get to it. Clue reference, a twin reference. There was another twin reference. That's a little tease. I'll talk about it in a minute. But yeah, I'll pull back a little bit, but I still do think it's him, just for the record. Okay. So we open up this week. This is Howard's show this episode. Howard gets a lot of time here, and it's fun. He opens up talking about this legend of Gideon Gooseberry.
Theaters are known for their ghosts. Take the gooseberry.
And you must apparently sweep the energy off the stage, or he curses your show each night, every time you have a show. So he's talking about this, and then we see a shot of Oliver comparing the handwriting in his head at this point of Loretta's F and P, which are identical. I mean, I think it's safe to say she wrote it, but I don't think she did it. I'm going with the theory that she's Dickie's mom, and even in those pictures that she has of Ben, you can see Dickie in the background of them. So I think that's why she kept that scrapbook. And
I mean, that very well could be. I think that's a pretty solid guess there.
That's what I'm going with, 100%. And then as Howard's doing this monologue, the opening monologue, he goes to Mabel's door and says that he killed Ben Glenroy.
I have something I need to confess. I killed Ben Glenroy.
And we find out after the credits, of course, that it's because he didn't sweep opening night, and it's the curse of Gideon Gooseberry.
I thought you said you killed Ben Glenroy.
Yes.
Now you're saying a ghost killed Ben Glenroy.
Yes, Charles, it's perfectly simple.
And he's not a big fan of himself in this moment. He's very distraught. So
poor Howard.
Yeah.
I loved him so much in this episode.
He shined.
Was so good. Over the top, just the essence of the theater. I could feel it oozing from him.
Gideon Gooseberry! Is that you?
So the reason he didn't sweep is because KT's office was locked. He couldn't get the broom, but I was writing this down in my notes. His ghost story could actually have some clues in it. It did, because he thought he saw Gideon, but he saw someone else. We find out later who it was, but he saw someone else. And that's Taubert's opportunity to walk into the conversation. First off, he walks into the room fresh out of the shower, and Oliver and Charles are like, okay, I guess this is happening. And spoiler alert, as Charles says.
Spoiler alert.
Nope, not the correct usage of that whatsoever.
And
plot twist.
Plot twist, yeah.
Plot twist.
Still no.
You know, he's butting himself into the gang. And in my notes, I even wrote, I will cool off because of the commenters thinking he's a red herring. But anyway, he was focusing on the outfit that was described a cap and a red coat.
Did you hear what he said about the cap and the red coat? I mean, it kind of sounds like...
Ben's doctor, I had the same thought.
Sounds a lot like Dr. C, doesn't it? So he wants Mabel to pursue this Dr. C lead because it was his idea in the first place. Let's be honest. That, like, whether or not he did it, they were at that bar that night so Mabel could witness Dr. C. That's I think that's clear as day.
As soon as they mentioned that the cap and the red coat, obviously I thought of Dr. C. But then I'm like, okay, so did Taubert orchestrate this so that Mabel would see Dr. C and then someone, you know what I mean? So it would kind of connect, like, and then he dressed up like Dr. C in the theater or whatever, but that was wrong. So
like a lot of times they've done this season, they set something up and they immediately answer it. So you got to give them credit for that. Almost every episode ends with like a cliffhanger type of thing, but they do give us answers, so it's enjoyable. You know, this is when Charles decides to tell everyone that Joy left him.
Spoiler alert.
And he says Joy didn't write fucking pig on the mirror. And at this point in time, Oliver's got a pretty good idea of who did write it in Loretta. Charles and Oliver don't want Taubert to investigate on the mystery man, so they're like, just us. We're gonna go check it out. Please don't invite him. Like, it's supposed to be just us three. And then Howard screams out,
"There is a murderous ghost on the loose!"
He was so good, dude.
They get to the stage and we find out about this ghost light that's supposed to never go out, and it immediately goes out once someone says that. Oliver wants to investigate the dressing rooms on his own because of him kind of knowing that Loretta wrote that at this point, or at least that the handwriting looks very similar, so he knows that, so he wants to go check it out on his own. They don't want him to, but then out of nowhere, a sandbag falls and almost just smokes Charles. And that's apparently how Gideon died.
A 300-pound sandbag came loose from the rafters and brained him in the middle of his second act monologue.
So that scares everyone. And then another one falls and they go see KT to talk about it. Howard goes to talk to KT about that. And while that's happening, Mabel finds a sign-in sheet of the entire cast.
Handwriting samples from the whole cast. We can use this to compare to the fucking pig on Ben's mirror.
She has the idea, let's compare, see who wrote it. Now, if Oliver wasn't in a situation where he's trying to protect the person he thinks wrote it, that would be a great discovery and he'd be very excited. But he doesn't want this to happen because, again, he has a pretty good idea of who did it. He just doesn't accept it at this point.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think that would be very helpful.
And then the scene between Charles and Mabel talking about Taubert, I like that because it showed that Charles does love this gang and this community feeling that they have. But also, he's just upset that she let him in. When he said you showed him the murder board, he was upset. That really hurt his feelings.
He was, yeah. But I mean, can you blame her? They've been hurting her feelings this entire season. They've just been leaving her hanging. So she's lucky that she didn't just immediately roll over and start investigating with Cinda.
No, that's true. She turned that down, and tons of money she turned down too, just to stay in this group. She does defend Taubert.
Taubert has done more for this case in the past 2 days than you have the past 2 weeks.
We know that he's been preoccupied, so he takes that on the chin. Then Oliver is in the dressing room looking at the handwriting. He knows it matches at this point. Like the F and the P are exactly the same.
Yeah.
So he's going to share it. But then he hears something and he goes upstairs to investigate what that is. And then before you know it, someone puts their hand over his mouth. And Jules, at this point, I swore that was one of the twins. They both might be dead, but my first instinct, now, if you don't buy the twin theory, I'm sorry, but I do because the tattoos, come on, like the CG, GC, it just
seems like a careless mistake.
It's just too obvious. It's right there in front of you. And I could have sworn it was going to be that, but I was wrong. And we see Charles puts the fish into the top of a toilet.
Water is water, right?
And I kept writing in my notes every time they showed something with this fish.
He's gonna flush
R.I.P. R.I.P.
Literally same thing. I'm like, bye, fishy.
The fact that it survives in the end, spoiler alert, come on, that fish was so dead. So Oliver's talking to this mystery man, and it turns out to be Jerry Blau.
Jerry Blau?
He's a former director. He's in the scene, and it turns out he's living up there. He's the mystery man that they've been looking for. Howard and KT are talking about Gideon. She says, you don't sweep him away. You have to include him. Come on, I'll show you. And then, we see Charles pee into the toilet. And again, I wrote R.I.P. But they did these scenes. They would show something, go away from it. Show something, go away from it. So they stretched it out a little bit. And in between that time, Jerry's talking to Oliver, and Oliver just throws it out there. Any chance you killed Ben? But this interaction they have is so funny. He kills a rat. The line delivery of Oliver saying,
I doubt I'll have a good night ever again.
is
But I know.
so
Brilliant.
good. And then the back and forth continues. He's like, what's the first rule of show business?
Don't feed Hugh Jackman after midnight.
The other one.
No, the other one. The other one. Yeah. So that little back and forth between Jerry and Oliver was
Oh yeah, so
my
good.
favorite part. So funny. That's what I mean. The vibe was back this episode. It was just,
Yeah.
it felt right. But no, it turns out, hey, he realizes he fell in love with one of his actors.
Oh, you fell in love with one of your actors.
And then we see Charles flush Mr. President. Oh God, who could have seen that coming? Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. Okay. The moment Taubert's been waiting for. Him and Mabel see Jonathan walking out of his dressing room with a handful of prescription pills. And oh, where'd you get them from? Like, obviously they know he doesn't really lie about it. Yes, I saw Dr. C. I was anxious. I don't want to be the leading man. This is too much for me. So he put me on the same meds that Ben was on.
And just a dash of methamphetamine.
This turns out to be a clue later. So pretty good explanation. I never really suspected Jonathan to begin with. Like, no way would it ever be
Me
him.
either.
Totally fine with me that they're giving us this answer now. Something I will shed light on in a minute when we get to it, though, about those meds. Then we see, the goldfish somehow survived. In his excitement, whatever you want to call it, he sets off the fog machine. So that's death number 3 that has to escape now. Okay, so something that we knew as an audience that Oliver didn't know, or anybody else besides Joy, is that Charles punched Ben opening night. And Jerry explains the fight. And first he explains the incident with Loretta and Ben. And he thought she said,
And I quote, a cock-sucking ding-dong.
maybe it was fucking pig. Maybe it was.
It could have been fucking pig.
Then it leads to, Charles punched Ben. And that was a huge revelation for Oliver. You know, obviously we don't think Charles killed Ben, but he was hiding that information. The red mark. This is something he's been hiding.
Charles punched Ben?
You didn't know any of this?
And then, Howard and KT do the ritual for Gideon, which is very fun. I like that scene. This is, again, Howard's episode.
Yeah, it was nice that they got to do that whole little fulfilling their childhood dreams thing.
Strong start.
Thanks.
Yeah.
KT got to be the director. He got to be the leading man. I like that.
Yeah,
That was a
it
sweet
was cool.
moment.
Then Charles realizes he has his Jimmy keys on him, so he can actually get out of this situation that he's found himself in.
Jimmy Keys? Hello, baby.
So he does so. And Jerry and Oliver continue talking. How far do we go back? All the way back to our original hairlines. These two are great together. Give us more Jerry and Oliver.
I know. I hope we see Jerry again.
Yeah, so good. Just like pure comedy. It's so good. And then he reminds him that Oliver told him that indecision is death.
Choose what matters to you and then do whatever you have to do to get it.
So in this moment, Oliver's like, okay, I have to go erase fucking pig because it's obvious that she wrote it. So, okay, here it is. Here's the part with the medicine I was talking about. Did you catch when this was like a throwaway scene too, that they just kind of try to slide in there? When Mabel and Taubert are talking about the med situation, she says,
Well, Jonathan said the cocktail had a dash of meth. Why didn't that show up in his autopsy?
Oh, my God.
that could be the twin situation, right?
Yes.
Gotta be. I think you slide that line in there because one of them was on it, one of them wasn't. Are they both dead is still a question that I need an answer to because I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, there would be 2 bodies, obviously, if they're both dead. But if the methamphetamine isn't showing up on the autopsy, then that's not Ben Glenroy, who you just did an autopsy for.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'd have to look up how long something like that stays in your system. I don't know. But I would imagine if you're on it daily, it would build up to some extent, right?
I would assume at least 3 days. Like, it's got to be in there. So I think that line just solidified even more. Like if I needed any more proof, which I don't because there's 2 different tattoos. So I'm sorry. If you guys don't like the twin theory, I don't see there being another way. I think it's a fact, but are they both dead is still a question that's out there. So, yeah, I just think that solidified it even more. They were like, for the people that are going to hear this, because they did it real quick, right? They were walking and then they ran into Charles. So
Charles, yeah,
quick.
they got cut off.
So I just think that was for the ones who were like looking out for that type of thing. And then Oliver, in his realization that he loves Loretta, he doesn't want her to go down for this, even though, yeah, she probably wrote it, but she definitely didn't kill him, in my opinion. But he goes, I got to erase this. The police got their man anyway, Greg, the stalker, right? So at this point, he's not really acting like himself. He's trying to act like the investigation's already over. And he like,
he
puts
was
it on
being a real
Mabel.
dick to Mabel. Yeah.
Yeah.
You are like a dog with a bone, Mabel. They arrested someone for Ben's murder, remember? And yet you keep trying to throw suspicion onto my cast.
He like puts it on her for not accepting Greg when none of them accept Greg as the killer.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah.
clearly he's just not being himself right now. But this all leads to Mabel being like, yo, fuck you guys. Cinda asked me to partner up. You know?
She said that I don't need you guys, and I'm starting to see that she's right.
She lays into them both. You know, Charles for not carrying his weight at this point in the investigation, and Oliver for the move he's pulling right now. And it's so out of character that Mabel knows it.
Yeah.
So I think she just wants to lay it out.
As she should. I mean, she hasn't confronted them all season long. She's given them plenty of chances.
Yeah, and that leads to her being like, hey, man's dead. Someone that I actually cared about. I'm going to solve this with or without your help. So good on Mabel for doing that, taking a stand, you know, knowing what Oliver was doing was bullshit and really uncalled for, honestly. Like, really? You're going to erase that? Like, we've been talking about this for days now. You're just going to walk in and erase it?
And like, I feel like I'm kind of surprised that neither Mabel or Charles like caught on to the fact that he's trying to protect Loretta. Because I feel like that would have been like my first thing. Like you started seeing her and now suddenly you're acting weird.
Yeah.
And like erasing evidence.
That's something I hope we get next week because it's really out of character. If they don't pick up on that, like they have to pick up on that. So hopefully they address it next week. But yeah, good point. It's just like clear and obviously out of character for Oliver. So like something's up. Yeah. What's up? Oh, he's protecting Loretta. Got it. When again, like he's not accepting the fact that whoever wrote that doesn't mean they're the killer. They just wrote you fucking pig. And honestly, I think it would make them less out to be the killer because why would they implicate themselves? Why would they write that and then kill
something so easily identifiable? Yeah.
That's just someone who felt that way, who was saying that to him, and that's that. And they just had that argument where she called him a fucking pig.
She was like, yeah. He was being a J-hole, and I called him a fucking pig, and that was that.
Yeah, I think she was completely honest. And again, I think the whole reason of the scrapbook is just for Dickie, because Dickie's in those pictures also. You can see him in the background. Maybe not everyone, but a couple I saw, he was in the background. So that's
even
why.
So, like, following Ben's career is following Dickie's career.
Yeah.
So whether he's in the picture or not, she's still following it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, look at my son. My son's the manager of this superstar.
Yeah, like he did this.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll see. Do you guys not agree? Let us know in the comments. If you're suspicious of Loretta more than just the son theory, if you think she did it, let us know why. Again, we have a theory video coming up. We'll talk all about it. So the episode ends with, basically the group is split up. Really? I mean, you got Mabel and Tobert. They're looking at the murder board. They move Jonathan down from the killer suspect down to somewhere else. And it's just them two. And then we see Charles puts the fish back that might as well be named Jesus at this point, that the fact that it survived. and yeah, Oliver's just, looking at what he did. He erased it. It's completely gone now. You can't match up the handwriting anymore. He's dealing with that. And that's it. That's the episode. So really great episode in terms of quality. Not much that I can see is a lead on anyone new. We're basically in the same position that we were before. I do think we got more confirmation on the twin theory. And I think the Loretta being Dickie's mom theory, I think that also looks really good at this point in time. So
I agree.
Yeah. So I'm pretty happy with where we're at. Can't wait to see what you guys think. So get wild, put as many as you want. We'll read as many as we can in just 2 days' time. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this week. I think it was really, really good. And it was a step up from last week, I think. So
100%.
All right. That'll do it. Thanks so much for watching. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Charles puts the fish back that might as well be named Jesus at this point, that the fact that it survived. and and I'll
And there he was, in his signature cap and red coat.